Can you help a common man understand what exactly results into the appreciation or depreciation of the rupee against the dollar?
Ultimately, a currency's value depends on your country's inflation. How much the prices are rising in your country versus how much the prices are rising in the other country. In this case, the United States. Because you are comparing the rupee exchange rate against the dollar. Okay? So, effectively, the rupee, you can say early 90s, 80s, 8 rupees to a dollar. And today you're looking at 92 or 91 point something to the dollar. So what happened between 1985, 88 and 2025, 40 years? Why should it go from 8 rupees or 10 rupees to the dollar to 90 rupees to the dollar 9 times, right? So the answer is just simply look at how India's inflation has been in the last 40 years, how America's inflation has been in the last 40 years. Then whichever country has a higher inflation, over time, that country's currency will become weaker. Okay. That's a simple logic. So ultimately, the answer to making your currency strong is to have low and stable inflation. But the good news is we are getting there. That is why I said eventually the fundamentals will assert themselves and the Indian rupee will reflect the good fundamentals of the Indian economy. Okay. But the problem is currency markets can go here and there in the meantime. This is like, as they say in cricket, form and class. Form can fluctuate, but the class will eventually show through, right? But, given 1 or 2 matches you may do, for example, Surya Kumar Yadav scored a very nice 76 or 80 in the second T20 match against New Zealand. But this was his first score of above 50 after some 23 months or 23 matches or whatever. But you know that Surya Kumar Yadav has class. But there could be a period of 1 to 2 years when he doesn't score a 50 for over 20 matches. So that is what we call by form and substance. So currency markets can also make you behave like, cricket players. A form can desert you, but the class will show eventually. Okay. So similarly, fundamentals will show eventually in the currency. And that fundamental, if at all you want to forget everything else, the only fundamental that matters in the long run is your country's inflation versus the other country's inflation. The difference between the two will determine whether your currency becomes stronger or weaker over time. And in the last 40 years or so, in general, India has had a higher inflation rate compared to America. Okay, roughly of the order of magnitude of 3% difference. Like, for example, our inflation rate on average was 7%, America was 3%. Ours is 6 to 7, theirs was 3 to 3.5%. And if you look at it, the Indian rupee has weakened exactly on average by 3 to 3.5% every year. That is the inflation difference. So now over time, if the Indian inflation becomes 2% or 3% or 4%, as it is happening right now, and their inflation remains the same, 3 to, then the gap between the two is only 1%, or it may even become 0, then that sets the stage for your currency not to weaken going forward.